All right, we're back. Graveyard Shift Movie Podcast, episode number 136. And this week, I finally watched the movie that I was supposed to watch last week and somehow totally just forgot and ended up watching a completely different movie. But this week, I watched Caveat from 2020, which at the time I was like, oh man, 2020, this is like brand new. And then I realized, man, 2020 was fucking 3 years ago at this point. So that's kind of depressing. Uh, but yeah, time, folks. Um, anyway, Caveat from 2020. It was pretty good movie. There's some stuff that doesn't get answered, in my opinion, which isn't always a bad thing. And I guess, it's up to you to make your own conclusions about certain stuff in this movie. It kind of annoys me a little bit. The ending of the movie I found particularly annoying. I'm sure some people will really like it, but I was like, oh, okay, I guess that's it. That being said, though, I think it's a really good movie. I really like all of the performances in the movie. I don't think there's a single bad performance in this movie. I especially like the main character's performance. I think the dude's name is like Johnny Frenchy or something, like Johnny French or something, but he plays Isaac, the main character. And I really liked his performance. Also, he looks like a dude who should be in some like Viking fucking show or like an extra in Game of Thrones, like one of the Northmen or something. Which, if I look it up, shit, who knows? He might have been. But yeah, I think it's a pretty good movie. I'm gonna give it a 6.5. Thought about I thought maybe I was going to dock it to just a 6, because like I said, I'm kind of iffy on the ending. But no, I thought it was enjoyable. So I'll stick with a 6.5. And that seemed like a fair score to me. So, caveat, spoiler warning, I'm going to ruin everything about it. I don't know where you can, I think it's like on Vudu or some shit. Like it's streaming on something weird. I watched it on YouTube. It's there, so that's where I watched it. So go check it out if you want to, and you don't want to get spoiled, or just hang around and listen to me talk about it. But either way, spoiler warning, caveat. I'm gonna ruin everything about it, so you have been warned. The movie starts off with this lady who we will come to find out her name is Ogla. Shout out to Ogla. I've never met someone in my life actually named Ogla, but I don't know how many movies or books I've read that some lady is named Ogla. And one day, if anyone is named Ogla, who is listening to this right now, leave a comment. Let me know. I'd like to meet you just so I can know an Ogla. Say I've met an Ogla in the wild. But it starts off with Ogla, who is walking around her house with this creepy ass bunny. It's almost like the Energizer bunny, because it got a drum and everything, but it's a lot creepier looking, and the eyeballs are like they're it's like the fucking. You ever seen the memes or the videos where it's like the people who talk about their dogs that have human eyes and it feels like there's a human spirit trapped inside of the dog? That's what this rabbit is like. The eyes are very human. The design is very human. The eyes are very human, and so the whole movie I'm like, all right, well, someone's soul must be locked inside of this rabbit, right? That's what's gonna happen. I won't spoil yet if we get the answers to those or not, but just stick around. But she's holding the bunny by its ears, and she keeps pointing it to like different doors, and it won't. And then finally she points it to one door, and the bunny fucking does a little drum roll. So that takes it as in that's the right way to go. This door ends up leading down into the basement, and she goes down the basement, does the same thing where she's pointing the bunny in different directions, and finally she points it at like this wall, and the bunny does a little drum roll. So she goes over to this wall. She gets like a drywall saw, that rhymed, and she cuts a hole into the wall, and she's looking through the dark circle, but we don't see anything. Instead, it like transfers directly into the main character Isaac, who's looking through like a little peephole at, I think it's his apartment, and then we cut to credits. When we come back up, Isaac is talking to his friend who is named like Barrick. I think it's Barrick. Benedrick. I think it's Barrick. I'm gonna go with Barrick. He's talking to his friend Barrick, who who I couldn't help but note, like he looked like the rabbit, like his facial structure. I was like, is this the I was like, is this the fucking rabbit? But he just looks so much like it. It was unsettling to me. He tells Isaac that he has a job for him. He wants to pay him $200 a day for 5 days to go and babysit his niece because his brother just killed himself and her mother is missing. She's been missing for like 8 months or whatever. And so he wants her, I don't remember why it was babysitting now. Like, I think he was organizing other stuff to take place with her. Like he was going to send her to a school or some shit, but she had to be alone for 5 days. And so he was like, I need you to just go and babysit. The weird thing, we get into this whole thing about how she has these psychological issues and stuff, but this lady is like 20 something years old, and it's like she couldn't look after herself for 5 fucking days. But either way, the dude's like, well, if all I'm doing is babysitting, that's easy money. So sure, I'll go ahead and do it. So he agrees. They drive out to this random field, and Isaac is like, what the fuck are we doing? And he's like, we got to take this boat across this stream to get there. It's an island. And the dude was like, what? You didn't mention anything about it being an island. And the guy's like, well, it is. Come on. So they get in a fucking boat and they go to the secluded island off the water or whatever. And then they get inside of the house, and the dude immediately goes, so I didn't tell you this before, but this bitch got some serious problems. Like, he starts listening to Laura. She doesn't like, she's paranoid. She makes up stories. She doesn't like people getting too close to her. She doesn't want anyone coming inside of her room. And the guy's like, well, I'm not planning on going inside her room. And he goes, well, it's not that easy. She has these nightmares where she feels like she's being attacked and stuff. So, you might feel compelled to go into her room. The weird thing, as far as I can remember, I don't think we ever see her have those nightmares that guy talked about. I don't think that ever happened. I could be wrong. I remember there's one part where you hear her crying, but I don't know if maybe that's what he was talking about. Also in this conversation, he drops this weird thing about how, he's like, yeah, foxes live around here. Or no, there's a picture of him and his brother, this girl's dad. And the guy's like, oh, what were you hunting here? And the guy was like, foxes. You ever hear foxes, crying out at night or whatever? It sounds like a teenage girl screaming. And the guy's like, okay. And he's like, you ever hear a teenage girl scream? And Isaac's like, no. And the guy goes, sure. And I was like, what? What's going on? So he lists down all this shit that's wrong with his niece. And then he goes into a room, and you hear these chains moving around, and he brings out this leather fucking harness attached by this thick-ass chain, and he tells the guy that Ogla's grandma was a sleepwalker, and she used to wear this at night so she didn't wander into the woods. And then he's like, here, you have to put this on and wear this for 5 days straight so you don't go into rooms you're not supposed to. And the guy was like, I'm not planning on doing that either anyway. And and he's like, well, you don't have a choice. And Isaac's like, all right, well, I'll leave then. Like, I mean, and I was like, yeah, you show up, first off, you don't know it's on an island. Then you get listed all these problems this lady has. And then you're told, I want you to wear this fucking harness for 5 days straight that keeps you attached, you know? And so the dude's like, no, I'm not doing it. So the guy's like, fuck, follow me. And he takes him into Ogla's room, where we see her, and she's sitting on the floor with her hands in her, like, holding her face in her hands. And the guy says she gets in these catatonic states when she gets too excited. Like, she can't hear us or, you know, anything. She just sits here. Also, neither one of them seem very concerned by the fact that there's clearly still dried blood and shit under her nose, because she was all bloody in the opening scene of the movie. But neither one of them seem to give a fuck about that. So, the guy seems to see this and go, okay, well, she doesn't look harmful, I guess, you know? So he agrees. He lets the guy put on the harness. And the dude's like, all right, I'll see you in fucking 5 days. And then he leaves. As he left, the guy just sort of like walks around the house and he's just looking at things. And I couldn't help but wonder, first off, so that you're telling me this dude isn't going to be able to take a shower for 5 days because he can't take this fucking harness off, so he can't take his shirt or anything off. I was like, how is he going to sleep? Like, it looks so uncomfortable. We see later he tries to go to the bathroom, and the thing isn't long enough to reach into the fucking bathroom, so he just has to go take a piss outside. Like, it's a terrible fucking setup. So he goes outside, like I said, after he's looking around, and he realizes he has to, like, piss outside. And there's a fucking dog just, like, tied up outside, and he just, like, stares at it, and they just look at each other. And then he goes inside and, like, gets some Spam, and he, like, tosses it to the dog, and the dog eats it and shit. And then he just sets up a chair at the doorway outside, and he's sitting there looking at a photo of himself and Barrick. Now, I say this because it took me fucking forever to realize that this was the same guy, because in the picture, he's clean shaven, and in the movie, he's got this big bushy beard. And so I thought it was like a picture of his friend with the brother, even though we had already seen a picture with the, you know what I mean? Like, it was, it took me so long to realize that was him in that picture. He is sitting there looking at the photo, and then the dog, like, stands up and is looking behind him, and the guy's like, oh, what's going on with the dog? And we see behind him that the light turns off, and then something grabs his chain and yanks back, and he, like, falls out of the chair. He goes walking around to see if anything, or see if he can find anybody, but, you know, he doesn't see anybody. But then there's this, like, the radio system throughout the house where you, like, hold down the button and you're like, oh, Cynthia, bring me some coffee or whatever, you know? And he hears something over that, and so he presses down and he's like, hello? And we hear, like, this muffled, like, scream, yell type thing happen. And I'm not sure if that was Ogla in her room or what that was, but the scene just cuts right there. So already shit's starting to go down. That night, the dude's going to bed, and first off, he sleeps with the door open, and second off, he sleeps on his side with his back to the door. And I was like, you're a fucking madman. I would never, if I slept with the door open, there's no way I'd be sleeping with my back turned away from the hallway and everything. You're fucking crazy. Second off, I noticed he doesn't take his pants off or his boots or anything. He's just laying on his side, fully clothed, with the light on. He doesn't turn the light off either. He's trying to sleep, and there's a loud bang, and he's like, oh, fuck, what was that? And he turns around, and we see that the one painting that was on the wall has fallen off. And the painting is of a woman holding a rabbit mask. And he sort of stares at it. It's like the eyes in the painting are staring back at him. And eventually he gets up and goes and turns the painting around to where it's facing away from him. He gets back in bed, rolls over once again, back facing away from everything. And then when he turns back around, the painting has turned around to where it's facing him. And he's like, all right, something ain't right here. So he gets back up again, turns the painting facing away, and this time he gets back in bed and he stays facing it the whole time as he's trying to go to sleep. He wakes up. He's fallen asleep at this point, so he wakes up, and the painting once again has turned around towards him, but this time it's whispering some shit. It's like, come closer. And he puts his ear to it, and we hear just a bunch of different whispers of like, I can't pick out anything particular that it said, but it's whispering all this shit. And then he wakes up, and he's in bed again, and the painting is facing away from him. So you're like, well, did that happen, or was that a dream that this guy had? And it just leaves it up to you to determine which one it is. The next day, he's wandering around the house again. And as he's in the living room, he notices the rabbit toy that we saw at the beginning of the movie inside of like this china cabinet. So he opens it up and he's looking at it and he's like, oh, that's a little, unsettling. And then he walks over and he sits it on top of the fireplace. And he goes to start a fire when we hear a scream. And it's a fox, and you're like, oh shit, well that's why that guy mentioned the fox sounding like a teenage girl screaming or whatever. And then from behind him, he hears a lady go, it's a fox. And he turns around and Ogla is standing there in the living room with a crossbow. And he's like, oh hey, something ain't right here, And she tells him, hey, don't light the fireplace. Her mom had blocked it up because birds used to get in. So if he lit a fire, all it would do was fill the whole house with smoke and shit. They start talking. He's asking her about her dad. And he's like, yeah, I heard he killed himself. That's how he puts it, too. He's not like, oh, I heard he took his own life or, something. But no, he's like, I heard your fucking dad fucking offed himself, And she's like, yeah. She says that he shot himself in the head in the basement with this crossbow. And she proceeds to go on about how he had severe claustrophobia. And her mom thought it'd be funny one day when he was sleeping to put him into the vest that he's wearing right now. So when he woke up, he was freaking out. And he was like, please, I need the key. And she wouldn't give it to him. So he tried to get it away from the mom, but the mom just swallowed it. And so the guy couldn't get out of the vest. But then the weird thing is then she's like, oh yeah, and then she wore that key around her neck like a trophy and always had this evil smirk and says that the mom was mad and shit. And we see the mom drawing circles just in this notepad as she's just staring at the daughter and shit. Now, here's why I say it's the weird thing, because if you guys remember, the mom swallowed that key. So are you telling me that this lady shit out this key and then cleaned it up and is wearing it around her neck as a trophy? Because that's sure as shit what it sounds like to me. Also, so the dad just lives in the vest now? Because I don't think they ever mentioned him taking it off. Either way. She ends the story with talking about how the dad got locked in the basement one day, and, he couldn't take it with his claustrophobia, so he shot himself. After she finishes this talk, she immediately just, leaves the room. She just leaves. The dude's like, well, that was fucking weird, so he goes and sits back in front of the fireplace, and as he starts to, close his eyes, the rabbit drums at him, and he's like, what the fuck? And he goes, hello? And the rabbit goes, and he goes, hello? And the rabbit goes, and every time he says hello, the rabbit drums back to him. And eventually, the rabbit starts, drumming his ass off, where he's just like, and fucking, we see the door behind him opening up, the door that leads to the basement, and the camera makes it seem as though someone is creeping up behind him. But when the guy eventually turns around, after the rabbit stops drumming, there's nothing there. But he does see the door open. So he takes the rabbit, much like Ogla does in the beginning of this movie, and starts to walk down into the basement. He's pointing it around once again, and the rabbit drums at the same spot. And we see that the hole that Ogla had carved out earlier is still there. So everything that happened in the beginning has already happened. It's not like one of those things where we were we're catching up to where we were in the beginning. No, the beginning has already happened. So he goes over to the hole, and he looks through it for a little bit, and it's dark, and he can't see shit. And then he grabs a flashlight that he finds down there, and he shines it through the hole, and as he's panning around to the left, he discovers the mom, who's been missing for 8 months, dead in the hole in the basement with crossbow bolts stuck in her chest. And he's like, oh shit. So he immediately hauls ass out of the basement. We also see the key around her neck, where that key that she kept. The dude goes upstairs, and he's like, all right, I gotta let my homie know that I found the mom, and what happened. The only problem is the only phone in the whole house is in Ogla's room, and he can't get in Ogla's room because of the vest. He peeks into Ogla's room, and we see that she's in her catatonic state. So he's like, okay, well, I can make something happen. So he goes into this little closet that's next to Ogla's room that he can pop off the vent that's right next to her nightstand where the bed or where the phone and everything is, and reach in and get the phone. So he does this. He pops off the vent, reaches in, grabs the phone, and dials Barrick. He tells Barrick that he found the mom dead, and Ogla is walking around the house with a crossbow, and he's like, I gotta get out of here. And the dude's like, okay, I'm gonna take care of you. I got you. I'm on my way. And he hangs up. So then he hangs up the phone, and before he leaves, he goes to Ogla's door and takes the key out of her door and shuts it and locks her in her room. We cut to him chilling out in the basement, and Ogla starts coming over the radio, and she's like, Isaac, I'm locked in my room. Hello, And so he goes over and answers, and he's like, yeah, I know. He's like, listen, I found your mom. Your uncle is on the way here, because I got to get out of here. And she's like, you found my mom? And he's like, yeah. And she tells him that she didn't kill the mom. It was her uncle and her dad who killed the mom. And now if the uncle knows that he found the body, he'll be coming to kill Isaac, and he won't let her go. She says that she also found the mom, and that was what we saw in the beginning of the movie, was her discovering her mom's dead body. So he goes upstairs, and he makes her stand back from the door and give him the crossbow. And he takes them both, and he's like, you're telling me the truth that it was them who murdered your mom? And she's like, yeah, it was them who murdered my mom. And he's like, well, why wouldn't you go to the police? And she says that she doesn't want people to remember her dad as the guy who murdered his wife. And so he's like, well, okay. So he tells her that he believes her, and he's like, we both got to get out of here. But then before they can put any plan into action, she starts staring over his shoulder. And he's like, what's going on? And he turns around and he faces down the hallway, and he's like, hello? Is anyone there, And we see Ogla go into the closet behind her, and when she comes back out, she's wearing the red leather jacket that the dude was wearing in the picture of himself and Barrick. And he's like, how the fuck do you have my jacket? And she goes, you left it here the last time you were here. And the dude's like, you're mistaken. I've never fucking been here before, he's like, what's going on? And she says, you left it here a year ago when you came here and locked my dad into the basement, and he killed himself. And he's like, you're fucking crazy. He goes, listen, your uncle told me that you make up stories and that you have problems. You need to call him, and he'll tell you that what you're saying isn't true. Also, here's the thing. I'm pretty sure that this dude starts calling him Barrick, like, at the end of the movie. But I remember now, his name is, like, Mo, because he, like, writes it down and he says it multiple times. Oh, his name is Mo Barrett. So he calls him Barrett sometimes. Okay, that's where we go. Now that we settled that, we can go on with the movie. So she does. She, like, slowly walks over to the phone, and she calls Mo, and she's like, "Hey, we're sitting here. We're on speaker. Ogla's telling me that I came here and locked the dad into the basement a year ago, and that's how the basement door got locked." And the dude goes, "Yeah, you did that." And he goes, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, that was you. You did a job for me. You did it before I could even change my mind about you doing it. Like, you had already done it before I could call you and call it off, which should have never happened." And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? So he's like, Ogla, take me off speaker. And so now she's just talking to the uncle herself. So she gets off the phone with the uncle, and she's like, he's on his way here. We're going to take care of you or whatever. And he's like, listen, if something were to happen to me, someone would know, And she goes, well, did you tell anyone you were here? And you literally see this guy's face drop as he realizes that he didn't tell fucking anybody where he was going. So he just closes her door really fast and locks it and runs into the basement where he's trying to break the chain. But it doesn't fucking work, So he's like, shit, I gotta get the key. And the key to the lock is sitting on Ogla's nightstand. So very sneakily, he fucking, like, is creeping down the hallway. And he's trying not to make too much noise because there's this glass, there's just this piece of glass above the door where you can look through into the room and into the hallway. So one of the floorboards creaks, and he's like, oh shit. And so then we see Ogla look up into the glass and look into the hallway, but he's managed to slip into that closet before she can see him. So he's like, okay. So he gets in there and slowly starts to stick his hand in to grab the key. And then it just pans out and we see Ogla just standing there staring at his hand. And she grabs it and just starts fucking, dislocating of fingers and shit. And she just grabs finger and the dude's like, oh my God. And he like goes away. And he runs away and his finger's all fucking bent up and shit. But this dumbass leaves the crossbow sitting next to the door. And there's just this little, like, pane of glass that Ogla starts tapping on. So I'm like, okay, well, she's clearly going to break this glass and then just get this crossbow. And she's just going to be wandering around again. So he goes into a room. And he, like, snaps his finger back into place. And as he does that, he remembers the key around the mom's dead body. And so he's like, oh shit. So he goes back into the basement and, he gets the vest off. He gets the key and takes the vest off. And he's like, well, that was a lot easier than I anticipated. And like all good things, you always get like a dick coming in your mouth eventually. And that was a very weird, I don't know. I don't know why that was my what? This is a mess. Anyway, he takes off the vest, but then all the lights go out, and he has like his little flashlight, and he's moving around, and this is when we hear like Ogla crying and shit, and that's the part I was like, well, maybe that was her having the nightmares, but I'm not sure. But yeah, the lights are out, and so now he's in total darkness. He manages to creep outside, but of course there's like a fucking typhoon going on, and it's just pouring rain, and it's storming, and he's like, oh shit, you know? And so he comes back inside and walks into the kitchen where he finds Ogla in that weird catatonic state once again. And he takes the crossbow away from her and leaves her in the kitchen. I'm gonna guess that must be when it happened, and I just completely missed it. Because the next time we see her, she's wearing the vest, and she's chained up in the house. And I don't remember him ever putting that vest on her, but she says that he's the one that put it on her. So unless she's just making that up, so I'm gonna guess that it must be this moment when she's like in her weird state that I just missed it, and he puts the vest on her. So he walks away, and it gets super fucking cold because I guess he's all wet from going outside and there's no power or anything. So he goes into her bedroom because he knows that she can't get in there because she's wearing the vest. And he, like, starts to cover himself up with his jacket, and he, like, puts on a beanie, and he gets flashbacks to himself, clean-shaven, and Mo coming to visit him and telling him that he has a job for him. And he wants him to go to his brother's house and lock him in the basement because there's stuff that his brother knows about him that he can't let get out, and he's starting to not trust his brother. And so right before it ends, we see the guy go, all right. And he agrees. And then Isaac wakes up and he like has to immediately vomit. So he runs to the bathroom, and he's like puking. And as he does that, we see that he's once again, he left the door open. So Ogla is just at the door, and she takes like a fire poker and reaches in and grabs the crossbow and just pulls it out. So now she has the crossbow. Isaac gets done puking, and eventually he goes to the door and opens it up, and it's like we just reenact Pulp Fiction with Bruce Willis standing waiting for John Travolta to come out of the bathroom, where they have a standoff of her holding like the crossbow pointed at him and him standing at the bathroom. And then she shoots. And she just like skims the side of his head and she misses. And she's like, oh shit. And so she starts to reload. But she's a weak little woman. And so it's like taking all of her power. She's like, oh, get me fucking pull it up. And she's trying to load it up. And for some reason, this fucking guy, instead of just charging her, and he could very easily overpower her and grab like the crossbow and everything, he just locks himself back in the bathroom. So he shuts the door, and he's chilling out in the bathroom again. Once again, we fucking like go through some time. And then he sneaks out again, and I think he's going to try to call the police at the phone. But as he gets to the phone, she just shoots through the little hole, or the little vent where the guy had reached through earlier, and shoots him in the fucking leg. And once again, she just comes to the door and stands there and stares at him, and this guy just retreats back to the door. I was like, this guy fucking sucks, man. Just fucking attack. Like, you could win this. So at this point, I'm like, okay, so was this the uncle's idea the whole time? Like, he was just going to come here and Ogla was going to kill him because she knew what he did to the dad or whatever, you know? He goes in the kitchen and the bathroom and passes out, and we get more flashbacks of him coming to the house and him sitting around waiting for, I guess, the dad to show up. And he takes that black notepad that we saw the mom like drawing the circles in, and he's writing something in it. But before we can hear or see what he writes, we hear like a woman laughing, and he's like, what the fuck? And he starts to follow it. Also, I couldn't help but notice that there's a bunch of holes or cracks on the wall, and one of them is shaped exactly like a woman's face. I don't know if that's intentional. I'm gonna assume so. It's just in the background sitting there. I'll see if I'll fucking find like the the frame I'm talking about, and maybe I'm just crazy. So he goes down into the basement, and he's looking around, and eventually he goes into like the wall, or like this little back room type area, and he finds the dad with a crossbow bolt already through his head. Like, he's still alive at the moment, but he's already shot himself in the face with the crossbow. So he runs up the stairs and leaves. So in reality, we see that, because then he goes and talks to Mo, we see that he didn't lock the door. The door was already locked as he got there. So he's like, who the fuck locked the door? And he asks Mo, he's like, did you lock the door? And Mo's like, I didn't lock the door, So Mo pulls out some money and throws it on the table, and he's like, there's your pay. And the guy's like, but I didn't do anything. The door was already locked. And so then Mo reaches into his pocket and pulls out a piece of black notepad paper, and we see that the guy had been writing, Mo is trying to kill you, or Mo wants you dead. And so we see that in reality the guy didn't lock the door or anything. In fact, he was coming to warn the brother that Mo wanted him dead. So the guy's like, you were gonna fucking tell him. And Isaac was like, yeah, what kind of a fucking man tries to kill his own brother, And the guy's like, listen, take this fucking money, and then me and you are never gonna see each other again. And Isaac's like, I don't want your money, get it out of here. And so the dude's like, you're going to sleep on this, and I'm going to come back in the morning, and we're going to have this conversation again. And so he leaves. That night, we see Isaac on the balcony, and he's drinking a bottle of wine, and he's all drunk. And then in the background, we see Mo sneaking up behind him, shoes off. He's in socks, so he's real quiet. And Isaac starts to turn around, and we cut away, and presumably Isaac was tossed over the balcony by his friend, because we did hear on the phone the dude Mo saying that Isaac was never the same after his accident. So that must be his accident. It was him falling over the balcony, and that's how he has amnesia and doesn't remember any of this happening, I guess, So he wakes up again, and this time he's sitting in the bathroom, and this hidden compartment in the wall just slowly creaks open. And he's like, what the fuck is this? So it ends up being a crawl space in between the walls that leads down into the basement in the room where the mom's dead body is. He reaches through the hole in the drywall and grabs the little drywall saw that the lady had stuck in the wall, and he starts to cut his way out of the wall. As he's doing this, though, he keeps being creeped out by the dead mom's face, so he takes his beanie and just puts it over her head, and he goes back to sawing. But then when he looks back over, we see that a hole has been cut in the beanie, and the mom's eye is just watching him, and it's a really creepy little shot. So he starts to saw even faster, but then the fucking little rabbit is a little snitch, which, first off, this rabbit disappears from this movie for 40 minutes. You just never fucking see him. I was thinking this rabbit was going to be a big part of the movie, but he's not. But he's in front of the wall, and he starts drumming and shit, and down the stairs, we see Ogla coming down. So she comes over to the wall and slowly reaches in and starts taking the crossbow bolts out of her mom's dead body because she's out of ammo. And the whole time I was screaming at Isaac. I was like, fucking payback, dude. Start grabbing some fingers and breaking them shits. Or just start cutting her fucking arm. What are you doing, But he doesn't. He's trying to be stealthy. And so he, doesn't do anything. And then when she grabs both of the crossbow bolts out of the mom's body, the fucking uncle, Mo, he shows up, and he comes down the stairs, and he's like, oh, Ogla, why is the lights out? What the fuck is happening, And she's like, and then he's like, why are you wearing the vest? And she's like, he put me in it. He escaped, all this shit. And this is when he says that she's fucking everything up, and how is she making it this hard, and he's starting to believe that maybe the mom was right and she is a complete moron and shit. And she's like, none of this would be happening if it wasn't for you. And he's like, what'd you say? And she's like, sorry, you know? And so I think that was confirmation that the whole plan was for Isaac to get fucking killed when he came here. So, Mo goes over to the wall, and he's looking through the little hole, and eventually he shines the light and makes eye contact with Isaac, who's hiding in the back. But before he can say anything, he gets fucking shot in the back with a crossbow bolt by Ogla. And then once again, like, I'm sure it fucking hurts and stuff. It didn't really look fatal, the shot he took, but, I'm not 100% sure on that. But then he just slowly lets Ogla walk up the stairs and, like, what? and lock the door to the basement. And I was like, will someone just fucking go after her? Why do you guys just let her slowly walk around and do this shit to you? So yeah, she goes upstairs and locks the door. So now Mo is locked in the basement. And Mo starts telling Isaac, he's like, listen, hurry up and come out. We'll surprise her when she comes back. She doesn't know you're here. And slowly we see the saw start to cut out again. And as that happens, the guy, Mo, grabs a piece of firewood and he's holding it and he's getting ready for Isaac to come out and he's just going to bash him on the head. But as the saw is moving all slow, the radio crackles up and we hear Isaac saying, hey, Mo, I made it out. I'm sending someone in to get you. And you're like, what the fuck, you know? So the saw ends up finishing, and the wall gets pushed down, and the Mo drops the wood, and he backs up into a corner, and then slowly, coming around the wall, we see the mom's dead face just start to peer in at at Mo, and the guy screams, and we cut away. And then we go outside, and sure enough, we see Isaac crawling through, like, a gutter, and he gets outside, and then Ogla goes to the door and opens it up, and she's still chained up in the house, like, she can't move, and she just stares at Isaac as he goes over to that dog that we saw fucking an hour ago, and he unties it, and he's taking the dog with him, and those two stare at each other, and then the movie ends. There you go, that's the ending of Caveat. So I guess the guy just went to the mom's dead body and was like, hey, why don't we be a team? You know, like, I was like, how the fuck did he sent her in to get him? Did he know that she was alive? Like, what the fuck do you mean? Second off, what was the deal with the fucking rabbit? Like, I kept waiting for yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna assume that, like, the brother, I keep being like someone's soul must be stuck in the rabbit, and I keep being like it must be the brother or the dad, you know, and he's in the rabbit, but they never fucking explain that. And like I said, the rabbit disappears from the movie for like 40 minutes, and then there's never any like what happens to Ogla? I'm assuming that she'll just call like on the phone to get out or something, but he just leaves her alive. And there's never, like, she never finds out that this guy was innocent. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I don't know. The ending was a little bleh. But like I said, I thought it was a really good movie. So, you know, I guess it's a little, yeah, it's a sour ending to a good hour and 20 minutes or whatever. Also, like, I really like how they did the mom creeping around the corner, even though I think it's kind of silly and stupid. But, you know, honestly, if this movie didn't have any supernatural stuff, I kind of think it would be better. If it was just a simple, revenge type, you know what I'm saying? Like, all the supernatural stuff just sort of gave me headaches and more questions. Yeah. So, no. All right, let's do best of worst stuff for Caveat. Even though I said that the supernatural stuff kind of took me out of it, my best of is probably the shot of the mom with the fucking beanie and the hole cut out, so she's staring, with the one eye or whatever. It was a really creepy shot. I liked it, so that was probably my favorite part of the movie. Worst of, I don't know. Worst of, I might say there's like a good 10-minute period of nothing happening and Isaac just walking around in the dark, like just looking for stuff. And that was the one where I was like, all right, come on, let's get to something. So that might be my worst part. I think it's right after the lights go out, right before he goes outside and it's raining and stuff. It's just like 10 minutes of him looking around in the dark, but you can't see anything because they never show you where the flashlight's pointing. You just see the face of the flashlight. So you just see like the light in the darkness. You never see it actually pointing at anything. Yeah, and that drug on. So that's probably my least favorite. But that's it. I couldn't find a budget for this movie. I don't think it was in theaters. So I don't think it would have a box office or anything. But there we go. Apparently the budget, let's see if I can pull it. The budget was, and this is estimated, £250,000, I guess that is. I think that's pounds. I don't know. I'm going to go with pounds. Sure. I'm American. I can be ignorant. And then it says gross worldwide of $78,000. So there you go. But anyway, like I said, it's a pretty good little movie. So go check it out if you want to. That's the end of that one. Next week, it's the big one. We're gonna finish up the Child's Play marathon look along. I don't know if fucking Tyler's gonna be on it, but I'm gonna watch the 2019 remake, and we're gonna finish off our Chucky marathon, and then sometime soon look out for season 2 of Chucky. That'll be coming out. I don't know if I'm gonna do it like I did the last one, where I talk about the whole season in one go, or if I'm gonna break it into, like, if it's a 10 episode season, like do one episode and have it be, talk about the first 5 and then the last 5. So we'll see. But after we do Child's Play 2019, we'll do season 2 of Chucky, and then Chucky will be all done until season 3 comes out, because I don't think they're making. Yeah, they're done with movies right now. They're all about the TV show. So he'll be all wrapped up until the next season of the show comes out. Besides that, that's all that's planned for right now. I'm excited for the new Scream movie. We'll see how that goes. Scream, notoriously, all of the movies have been pretty good. The only one I didn't like was Scream 4, and they are bringing back Kirby from Scream 4, who was long rumored to be alive, and it was confirmed that she's alive, and she's going to be in it. So Kirby will be back, and like I said, I'm just hoping they finally pull the trigger on bringing back Matthew Lillard and make it, and I thought for sure in the last one he was going to be the killer, especially since the movie started off with being like, who was the killer in the, and they were like, Billy Loomis. And it was like, wrong. It was Billy Loomis and Stu Macher. And I was like, oh shit, Stu's back. But they didn't pull the trigger. So we'll see if they do it this time. It's also going to be weird with no Sidney Prescott in that. But we'll see how it goes. I don't know when that comes out. I think it's soon. So look out for that. I'll probably go to the theater to see that one. Yeah. So anyway, that's what's planned for right now. Thanks for watching. See you guys next week. We finish up Child's Play. And yeah. Bye-bye.